Welcome in. Lucho, I see you in there too. Hi, Brian. Okay, we're getting lots of people in today. Hi, welcome in, everybody. Tiny Desk Series is continuing with Life Amplified. Hi, everyone. Hi, Daryl. Hi, Amelia. Okay, welcome in, everybody. It is 2:00 Eastern time on a Wednesday, and that means it is time to get together for a session of Life Amplified. We are doing our Tiny Desk series again. So if you are new, you might not know this, but we are usually in a studio. Our studio fell apart. So we have been doing a Tiny Desk series at my desk. If you are a client, this looks familiar to you. If you're not, welcome to Jennifer's office. And so we are doing a little bit more intimate setup, I would say, but all still great content for Life Amplified. Hoping to be back in a studio or a studio setup soon, but for now, please bear with us. And if you do not know my reference to Tiny Desk, Google it later. Stay for the full hour here. We got a lot to learn from Dr. Darren. But later, Google Tiny Desk. You're going to see lots of cool stuff, including lots of your favorite artists who did Tiny Desk concerts. So we're adopting that theme and saying that this is our Tiny Desk series for Life Amplified. All right. If you are not new here, you know there are always things that we like to do to get started. First, let me introduce myself. I am Jennifer. I'm the Executive Director for amputee Aid. There's our banner behind me. amputee Aid is a Pittsburgh-based nonprofit, 501c3 nonprofit. If you're looking to donate to a charity, consider us. We help folks all over the country who have limb loss or limb difference, and by virtue of some of our friends up in Canada, also in Canada now as well. Whether you're looking for help with a copay, hi Peter, good to see you again. Whether you're looking for a copay, recreational equipment, help get into Camp No Limits or the Amputee Coalition Conference or anything like that, help navigating the system, we are here to provide that support for you. Financial assistance, social work, advocacy. You just want us in your life as your friend. We'd love to know more about you. If you're not already connected to us, just email info@amputee-aid.com. We'd love to get to know you. Whether you're looking to volunteer, looking to get part of our community, have more information, sign up for our newsletter, all of the things. Life Amplified is one of the many programs that we provide, which is our weekly webinar. It's in part to laugh, hopefully to learn, always to socialize and engage. Those of you attending on Zoom, hi to all of you. We are recording. Please know that. And to our friends behind the scenes on TikTok, hi to you as well. You're welcome to keep your camera on, keep your camera off, chat if you want to, but just know that the recording, although it will not capture your video or your emojis or anything like that, it will capture your voice. So if you're the kind of person who's like, oh, I don't really want my voice floating on the internet, that's all right. You can put your question or comment in the chat. We will try to address as many of them as we can as we go along. I'm monitoring the chat. Nick, who is behind the screens in his office, is also monitoring the chat, and we'll try to answer those questions. But feel free to interrupt at any time, right, Dr. Darren? We could interrupt, ask questions, put your little emoji up if you want. We'd love to have some engagement as we go along. You'll also know, to our friends on Zoom, we see folks trickling in during the hour, and that's totally fine. Whether you're getting a break from work or school or kiddos or grandkiddos or something like that, or coming from another group, you're welcome to come and stay as long as you can. But while you're here, if you're not engaged, please try to stay on mute so that we can not capture your audio and we can hear the content that we're providing today. All right. So let's know where you all are from. I said hello to many of you as you were coming in. Our old folks, awesome folks, but old folks are folks who've been here before. No, I always like to see in the chat where you're coming to us from, how the weather is in your area. And, you know, for this topic, since we are closing our Summer Fun Series, Hot Topics series for July, tell me what your favorite summer activity is. I'd love to know that, right? I'm the kind of person who likes to read a book. That might not surprise some of you. Let me stay inside and read a book, but share in the comments what's your favorite summer activity, whether it's for the hot weather season, right? So I see Myrtle Beach is in the house, Washington in the house. Hello from California as well. Connecticut's in the house. I know we always have our Texas people in the house too, our friends down in Texas. We'd love to know where you are coming to us from. TikTok, do the same thing. And to our folks watching this recording on YouTube, hi to all of you. Put in the chat down below where you're coming to us from as well and what your favorite summer activity is. We'd love to know. We'd love to engage and see how far we can get. Some of you know someday we'd like to be YouTube famous. We're not there yet, okay? So help me out. Help your director out and start sharing our stuff on YouTube. Go on there and like all the posts, okay? Because I want to be YouTube famous someday. If we're famous, we'll get more money to help people buy their prosthetic devices, and that is what matters, right? All right, so kayaking. Yes, Lori, I love that. Okay, all right, so we don't have any other summer readers, just me in the house. All right, I mentioned our theme, so let's talk about our theme, and then we'll talk about the content that we have today. We are in our summer fun series. We're going to continue that next month as well, August. Guys, we have an amazing slate of speakers for August. August's theme is back to school, 101 content. And we're going to have Mike Boland, which I think I saw Mike log in here for a moment, is going to be our guest speaker, kicking us off for August. If you don't know Mike, come back next Wednesday, but you all should, okay? We're going to be talking lots of things, including his 3 A's of life as an amputee. Amazing. I met with him today. Super excited to bring him to talk with you all to kick off August's theme. So please come back next Wednesday. But today we are closing out, and Darren, you are our finale, our Hot Topics series, okay? No pressure, Darren, but Hot Topics was for July. And what we did is we took topics that were commonly asked about or talked about, requested, and we put them all in July as part of our summer series, but our Hot Topic series. Lots of you have asked for content specific to physical therapy. That's where ampuPTee and Darren come in. So we're going to spend this hour talking about ampuPTee, talking about Darren and his practice, and talking about the importance of physical therapy specific to folks with limb loss or limb difference. We also have the benefit of recording a podcast with Darren. That's going to come out on Friday with the recording of this webinar, where we take a deeper dive into ampuPTee and Darren's philosophy. So please watch for the recording. If you are not getting them, check our YouTube page, sign up for our newsletter, and you'll get them automatically. And you can watch both the recording for today and the deep dive podcast that we recorded with Darren earlier. All right, so one final thing, and then we'll get started with our topic today, which is, I promised everyone we're going to do another giveaway. If you're new here, hello, my name is Jennifer, and I like getting free stuff off the internet, okay? For the old folks, you know. Okay, this is a big one. Look at this, guys. Okay, this company, Minky Couture, they donated a $200 blanket to us, okay? I'm not doing it justice in this picture. It is quite big and quite nice. And so we're going to give it away to somebody today. I don't know that you'll use it in the hot weather, and it has literally nothing to do with Darren or his topic. But you know what? We got it, and we want to have fun today. So we're going to give it away. So how do you get in on the giveaway? Pretty easy. First, we're going to do the number game again because I have not figured out a good enough way to get everybody's names into a raffle kind of drawing with my little socket cup, okay? Because I don't want to miss anybody. So we're going to do the number game again. What that means for all of you is stick around until the end of the hour. So 3 o'clock Eastern time. We're going to pick a number and guess it, and whoever types the number first is going to win this $200 Mink Couture blanket, okay? I hope we don't have anyone with dexterity or typing issues. If we do, could you please alert us some way in the chat so that we can make an accommodation? But I think we will be okay doing the number game. We did that the last 2 weeks, but I want to be sensitive to anyone with any other issues. So please let me know. Please let your director know. Okay. All right. I believe I have covered everything. Oh no, one other thing. Let's go back to the rules of our webinar. All right. As I mentioned earlier, we are recording. Also, this is a safe space. Okay, so we want to keep it light. If you have very specific personal information, this is probably not the time to share that because we are going to put this on YouTube. But please ask questions. Dr. Darren is here to answer questions, all right? So we don't want to discourage you from asking questions, but just be mindful that this is a public setting and there are lots of people watching on Zoom, on YouTube, and on TikTok behind the screen. So don't share your social security number or talk about things that are very, very nuanced, okay? Don't give us your bank routing number unless you would like to pay for someone's prosthetics or their trip to, I don't know, China. So, all right, everybody get the drift here? Okay. So that being said, Today's topic is the importance of physical therapy. And we're going to be talking about that through the context of ampuPTee and Dr. Darren. Okay, Dr. Darren, so let's start, Darren. I love you to introduce yourself. And what should we call you? Dr. Darren, Darren, Sir Darren, Stoop? How should we refer to you? Physical therapist, Darren?
Darren works great. I grew up being called Stoop, so Stoop. Okay. But Darren works great. The only time I get called Dr. Stroop is in the academic setting, and that is not this. So okay. Darren works great.
Darren works great. All right. Well, coming from another person with an interesting last name, Paine, I get it. I feel your pain. Growing up with last names like that, you hear it all, right?
Yep.
All right. So, Darren, I'd love for you to start by just introducing yourself. Give us a little bit of your background, as well as a little bit of the background for ampuPTee.
Yeah. So thank you for having me here. Excited to be here with you all. I recognize a few familiar faces, so hi to you all. I know you know who our connection, so it's great to see you all on a different platform here. But so I'm a physical therapist by training, I guess. That's what I went to school for, and I got to work in a really neat clinical setting. It was owned by a prosthetic company where we had prosthetists and physical therapists in the same clinic. The prosthetists were my friends. Their offices were right next to mine, and a lot of like collaborative care with our patients. So my whole caseload, not whole caseload, 90% of my caseload was limb loss. And, I just got to see like how good the care can be when the prosthetists and the PTs are working together and problem solving things in real time, and the speed at which things get done. When there's a prosthetic issue in a PT session, it's like, hold on, let me go get the prosthetist, and in 2 seconds they're in there and we're working through it and trying to solve that issue. So really cool utopian setting. I know it doesn't exist much at all throughout the country, but that's the setting I kind of grew up in professionally, and really just solidified my passion and interest in this niche area, this expertise that I developed, which, long story short, led me to start my company, ampuPTee, because I saw this huge gap in care. And as I got to start kind of traveling the country and teaching, I would see that it's like, okay, not every patient is getting the same level of care that we're able to provide in our office, where that's all we do. And it really bothered me. And like, how can I fix that? And that's like one of those like big questions, when you're trying to think like big picture, what can I do? What impact can I make? I think for the first bit of my career, I just had to figure out how to be a good physical therapist and just learn this specialty, because there's a huge learning curve for physical therapists. We don't get that strong education in prosthetics and amputee rehab in school. So I had to go through some growing pains, so to speak, to learn how to get good at this. And I feel like my learning curve was kind of exponential because of the resources and who I was surrounded by. Yeah. But realizing that that's not the case throughout the country.
Yeah. And can we pause here for a minute? Yeah. I saw a comment come through in the chat, and I was thinking the same thing, which is how significant it is to have your physical therapist and your prosthetist office integrated, which is very, very rare, right? I'm thinking back to my grandmother as an example, who was bilateral amputee, not driving and relying on other people to expect someone to go point A for physical therapy and then drive across town, point B to see your prosthetist, and then go somewhere else to see your doctor. That in itself is a challenge. But can you talk a little bit more about like why it mattered to you to be in a place where you were working alongside prosthetists? Like what is significant about that? And why don't you think other places that's often, more prevalent maybe throughout our country?
Yeah, I think that's a big question, and I don't know if there's a good, easy solution to that, because I think we all like inherently know that those two things should work together. But the even crazier thing is it's not even like a standard or an expectation that someone going through an amputation or experiencing this, is going to see a physical therapist. A lot of times that phase is skipped. You might get a little physical therapy in the hospital in that acute phase, but then it's just like, okay, wait to get your prosthesis, and then here you go, learn it. And there's no standard that you should work with a physical therapist. So I think that's part of the issue why this collaboration isn't like standard yet. And it's integrated in the military on the rehab hospitals in the military population, and that's phenomenal level of care there. But it's very few and far between in civilian population and outpatient clinics to have that collaboration, because again, the PT cannot do a good job in the rehab process with the prosthesis because we're not trained. The prosthesis is that's not our job. We can't make these adjustments. And the prosthetist should not be doing the rehab process because that's not their training.
Yeah.
So these two professions really, really need to work together. Otherwise it just doesn't work.
Yeah, I'm seeing folks in the chat saying first they're lucky if those two professionals are near each other, and also that it's a game changer if they're together. I'm also wondering, for folks, I see some head shaking yes at how much difference it would have been for you if you had your prosthetist and your physical therapist together, or if you had this scenario where your physical therapist, not knocking physical therapists, okay, but say, well, tell your prosthetist this, your prosthetist will say, well, tell your physical therapist that, and you kind of become the messenger. And Darren, so let's take you back. I kind of changed what you were talking about for a moment. I want to go back to what you were telling us originally, which is about this training, right? So physical therapy school, you're not trained in depth, in detail on serving amputees. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay, so tell us more about that.
Yeah, so I mean, there are standards within a PT program that meet in order to pass our board. So there are standards, and depending on the school, it depends on who teaches that course, but it still is a baseline level of information. Therapists come out as generalists, as do most. I mean, physicians, OTs, PTs, whatever. We all kind of come out as generalists, and you're just like inundated with all this information, and you're just trying to get through school, much less remember a very niche population or a 1 week course that you had in therapy. And maybe your first patient with an amputation you don't see them till a couple years out of school. Well, I don't remember what I had for lunch yesterday, much less what I learned, a couple years back in school with a very complex patient population. So there's that aspect of it, and I think that's really kind of what led me to believe it's a systematic issue. But I feel like there's no hub or training for physical therapists to seek out those resources when they do, as a physical therapist, want to learn a little bit more. There's kind of bits and pieces for us to learn, but no go-to place for physical therapists to learn. So I think bigger mission, kind of when I left clinical practice, I realized that I could only help maybe 8 to 10 patients a day in my clinic. And thinking bigger impact, like what if I could teach other therapists, rehab professionals, healthcare providers to practice the way that we did in our clinic and learn this framework that I developed to exponentially increase my reach as to how many lives I can positively affect. So that was kind of that bigger mission and bigger goal.
Kind of the impetus. And if we could pause there for a moment, because I'm thinking just kind of from a core, fundamental perspective, there are differences when you are providing physical therapy treatment to an amputee versus a non-amputee. And I wonder sometimes for family members, allies, friends, if they don't recognize that, right? You're just not going to go to quote any old physical therapist who is not trained or aware of the differences between an able-bodied person and someone who has an amputation. Can you just kind of set the stage here? What are some of the core differences when you are treating a patient who's an amputee?
Yeah. And I'm talking about the gap in care here, but it's like to a degree, it's not the fault. I'm not blaming physical therapists that don't have that specialized knowledge. That's not my intent at all. It's just a surgeon, just because a surgeon is really good at brain surgery, you probably don't want them doing a knee replacement on you, right? We all have to go into these. It doesn't mean they're not a good surgeon. They're probably an excellent brain surgeon, but that's what their training is in. And I think there are generalists that can kind of get everything competently, but to get really good at something, a specialty area, you have to see it. You have to work with it. So it's also the mission of like getting more therapists to know that this is a specialty need, that we need more therapists who are going to embrace working with this patient population. And I think that's also part of that big mission to make this an area where people go to. Because again, if you see 1 or 2 amputees a year as a physical therapist, I mean, they can be competent in treating it, but it's not like you just don't have the reps, the experience to really provide the best care that's available.
And so what are the kind of differences in the approach that you would take as a physical therapist when you're working with someone who is an amputee versus someone who's not an amputee?
So number one, first and foremost, and I preach this all the time, is the collaboration. So I think a lot of therapists are intimidated by the prosthesis. They're so hyper-focused on the residual limb, the prosthesis, that they forget all of their skills as a physical therapist. And what I'm trying to harp on is that the prosthesis doesn't have to be that thing that intimidates the therapist, that pushes them away from working with these patients. Because if we just talk to the prosthetist, if we just collaborate with the prosthetist, okay, I don't know what this microprocessor knee does, or I don't know what specific foot this is. You know what? I have a cell phone and I can call the prosthetist. I can go on Google, ChatGPT or something. What is this specific brand knee? What do I need to know about it as a therapist? And you can get some basic information where then you can apply your PT brain to this thing. So it's not necessarily like just regurgitating all this prosthetic knowledge. It's knowing that there is an entire profession. So prosthetists out there, there's an entire profession that went to school to learn this thing. PTs are not the ones that need to learn how to do everything prosthetically. We need to do the rehab piece and then work with the prosthetist on how those two things work together.
Mm-hmm. So collaboration is key. What about, I'm just wondering, from a physical therapist perspective, would it be a bad thing if your patient said, you need to call my prosthetist? Like, is that okay to do? Can you, if they're not collaborating, is that offensive? Is that something that's encouraged? Would it be a problem if the client said, you need to call my prosthetist, here's a number, like, I want you guys to talk, you guys, ladies, whoever. I saw Lynn put her hand up. Lynn, I was thinking of you. I'm glad that you did that. I was reminded of Lynn DeCola, who's the amputee coach. If you're not following her, please go follow Lynn. She does wonderful webinars, but she once said to me, insist that they talk to each other, make them talk to each other. Is that okay? Or from, like, as a physical therapist yourself, before you open ampuPTee, what would be your reaction if your patient said that to you?
So obviously I had a little different situation where they're like, you need to talk to my prosthetist. I'm like, well, he's right there. So right. let's bring him into the room.
Let's go down the hall. Right.
Yeah. Let me go get him 1 second.
Yeah.
I just had lunch with them today. So, so a little different, but I did also have patients that went to different prosthetic providers. So, okay. So two things to that. Yes, I think it's okay. And it should happen, because I think as healthcare providers, we can kind of speak the same language and communicate your needs as the patient maybe a little bit better, hopefully, and kind of cut out that middleman. So if I'm always telling you, it's like, okay, when you go see your prosthetist, tell them this, and this, and I'm seeing this. And yeah, you can write it down, but I think a lot of that kind of gets lost in translation. Yeah. So yeah, even just calling them or leaving in a message or communicating directly with them, I think we can probably shave off a ton of time if we communicate versus relaying. That being said, as the patient, as the individual living with this and experiencing this, no one is going to advocate more for you than yourself. So you still need to initiate. You cannot rely, you should never rely or expect anyone else to do anything for you. But if that expectation you have, hey, can you call them and communicate this to them? I think that's perfectly fine. PTs will not be offended by that. It's kind of that kick in the butt for us to do that, because you also have to realize, and this is never an excuse, but schedules of healthcare providers are booked top to bottom. So see patients, the documentation, the insurance stuff, and then maybe when there's time at the end of the day, we can deal with phone calls and try to coordinate schedules with other busy healthcare providers. So it is easier said than done to collaborate because of schedules. It's really hard for healthcare providers at different facilities to connect it, but that's an issue, right?
I want to go back and talk about the founding of ampuPTee in a moment, but I do have another kind of follow-up question. And I saw Clarence, Mr. Robocop, put this in the chat too, and I was thinking the same thing, which is another way of collaborating between your physical therapist and your prosthetist is when it comes to getting your physical therapy covered by insurance. If you have insurance and there's a limit, right, or trying to justify an extension of that limit, or trying to get a recommendation together to give to a nonprofit like Amputee Aid to pay for those sessions, that is another way that physical therapist is going to cooperate and help advocate. Is that right?
Yeah, insurance is so different, provider to provider, state to state, and I think it's always going to be, a topic of contention, discussion. There's insurance companies where, like let's say Medicare, for example, where they have a number limit, and I think a lot of therapists are intimidated when they hit a certain cap, but really, that insurance company is going to pay for things based on medical necessity. And for me, it's pretty darn easy to justify that rehab services are medically necessary for an amputee. I haven't found a case where that's not. Even if this individual is running marathons, I can still justify PT because there's a lot of other things going on. They're using a prosthetic leg. The body's going through all these adaptations, risk of breaking down in different areas. So there's always that ability to justify. Now, there are some other insurances where they're very, very limited in the visits that they're going to give. And I think, between the PT, the physician, the prosthetist, we can go to bat for you and try to justify the need for these things. And we do. And we should not just say, oh, they said you get 5 visits, we're going to discharge. I think that's kind of lazy on our part. I would always fight that. But sometimes that cap is hard and it becomes challenging. And that's where I think the onus becomes back on the patient. Okay, we have 5 visits. We are going to build up your home program so good that we can kind of space out our visits, and you need to work on the stuff on your own because we have limited time together.
There you go. Great points, Darren. And so that kind of brings us back to the origin story for ampuPTee, which is if you have limited sessions, or if your physical therapist is not trained specifically in handling an amputee population, ampuPTee can help with that, right? So all the better to have training that's specific to this community. And by the way, thank you, Lynn, for putting that chat in the comment. Our bodies are always changing, justifying medical necessity.
Yeah.
Yes, your physical therapist is part of your health team, everyone, the team that goes to bat for you, using Dr. Darren's phrase. And so physical therapy is important for everybody, even those marathon runners. So don't take it lightly. Don't just take your 3 sessions while you're in the hospital and that's it, right? So we want to really focus on this. So Darren, take us back to ampuPTee. So you were saying, as a physical therapist yourself doing direct patient work, you're able to see about 8-9-ish people a day, but you got the light bulb moment, the aha moment, which is if I train the trainers, so to speak, I can maximize my impact and really serve a larger community by training the people doing the work. Is that right?
100%.
Okay.
Yeah, that is just that bigger, that bigger mission is I love being in the clinic working directly with the patients and seeing that direct impact. But again, like you said, I also felt limited there, and I'm like, this is way bigger than my clinic in Omaha, Nebraska. How can I help more people? And again, if I were to somehow find a national way to reach directly to the limb loss population, and there are therapists that do that, again, it's still 1-to-1. I somehow want to get that exponential curve. And if I train one physical therapist that sees, let's say, 50 patients a week, not all of them are going to be the limb loss population, but again, that's over the accumulation of time, and you get 10, 20, 30, 100 therapists. That is a massive amount of lives that didn't directly impact, but indirectly, hopefully, provided those individuals with better care, with better lives.
Yeah. So you made a decision, you and your family probably, I'm going to not be a physical therapist direct worker anymore. I'm going to start my own business. Any experience in starting a business before you started ampuPTee?
So you talked about reading this summer.
Yeah.
I would say there was years leading up. It wasn't just like one day it's like, no, I'm out, I'm going to start a business. Obviously there's a lot of like pre-work going on. So, I would say 6+ years, I started to get that itch. I felt like there was more. I'm like, well, got a really, really good job. So I started just reading, consuming everything I could to become somewhat business savvy. Basically, probably read the equivalent of getting an MBA, just in books, different entrepreneurs. How do you do this? But what I quickly noticed, for any other business owners out there, just the education, the knowledge does not replace just doing it. At a certain point, it's like, okay, there's enough knowledge. You got to do it and learn from your mistakes, and just learn on the job. And then you'll have those questions that you need to ask. You're going to find what you suck at and what you need to learn more. It's like, okay, did not see that coming. Let me try to learn a little bit more of this so I can have groceries this week.
Yeah. I read a quote on LinkedIn recently that said, success is just going from one failure to the next, which is true. It's about the moving part, right? And you have to be willing to go from one failure to the next. I think that's a lot of people's lives, whether it's a business or your life in physical therapy, or you're learning to adjust as an amputee, or many other things. But so ampuPTee is the name of your business. And everyone, yes, it is spelled with a little a. That was not a typo. You can see it on the shirt there. Tell us kind of there it is. Tell us in a nutshell what ampuPTee does.
So the initial intent, the starting point for amputee was really tagline is like raise the standard of amputee care, of amputee rehab. So it's at its base a continuing education company for rehab professionals, PTs, OTs, and physical therapists need continuing education. Depending on the state, they need it to keep their license. So we are required as a profession to continue our education. And we have so many options out there as to what we can take. So if you're interested in stroke rehab, there's all these different neuro courses. There's dry needling. There's different manual there's so many courses. So I'm one of many options for physical therapists to take. So it's a course out there. It's a certification course in amputee rehab, because that really didn't exist prior to starting ampuPTee. So what I wanted to try to do was find a way for, first of all, patients, second of all, other healthcare providers to identify that a physical therapist has additional training in working with this patient population, because there really is no way. So my whole family lives in Wisconsin. I live in Omaha area. So if one of my parents were to go through something like that and they were to need to see a physical therapist, I would really have no way to get them to a physical therapist that I know has experience working with amputees, right? And in so many other ways, we have like orthopedic, we have sports trained physical therapists, we have neuro trained physical therapists, oncology. So any of these other things we can identify a therapist. You have a lot of training in that, go see that person, but not in physical therapy
Yeah,
or for amputee
I'm
care.
noticing, Darren, as you're saying that, I'm noticing some of the comments in the chat that are echoing what you're saying. We had a attendee who was sent to a sports rehab clinic, and he was their first amputee for physical therapy. Another person was sent to his wife's physical therapist, who was a stroke physical therapist, no experience. And then he was sent to someone else who was younger, and that person said, I've taught you everything I know after 3 sessions. So there isn't, so across the board, there isn't a mandatory kind of certification, specialization, something like that, and serving the amputee population.
Correct.
That's fascinating. All right. Also, I guess for on the patient side of things, for everyone attending live or watching on TikTok or on YouTube, that's probably the first question you're going to ask someone who's assigned to you as a physical therapist is how many amputees have you treated, and or have you had any training or specialization? And if not, refer them to Darren. Okay, so we'll get to that in a little bit. But so tell me more. So there was this, clearly there's a gap, right? And it sounds like ampuPTE is filling that gap by providing the training. Is that right?
That is the goal. And let me take one step back before we move to that is, if like for the immediate, until we are able to train more and more therapists and build up this database of trained therapists, in the immediate, for your immediate needs, if you're looking for a physical therapist, again, your best place to start still is with your prosthetist. Mm-hmm. Or even if it's not your prosthetist in your area, calling different prosthetic clinics and say, do you have any therapists that you typically work with? Because everywhere I've called, there's always a handful of prosthetists that do work closely with a therapist where at least they have some experience. So again, not ideal, but good starting point to kind of satisfy that immediate need. So sorry.
Don't be afraid. No, don't be afraid to ask. I think that's commonly something where we're too scared to ask, or we'll take the first referral that insurance gives us. Don't be afraid to ask. There's nothing more important than your health, right? So be your best advocate. Call Lynn if you need her help. Okay. Sorry. Side plug for Lynn's business. I adore you, Lynn. So always ask us questions. All right. So Darren, so you identified there's a need, there's clearly a gap, right? So you created would I call it a curriculum? What would we call the kind of service that you provide to physical therapists?
Yeah, so it's a course, and this course is based on a framework. And that framework is really to give therapists something to anchor to when they're working with the limb loss patient population. Mm-hmm. So they can just see this with a little bit more clarity. Because like I said earlier, there isn't really anything that a therapist can't just apply their skills as a therapist to someone with an amputation, right? It's that prosthesis that I think if a therapist is new to it, they just get so hyper focused on the prosthesis, the residual limb, and they forget that the entire body was affected by this surgery or by this asymmetrical nature of being an amputee if unilateral. So once we can get over that and just anchor to that framework, okay, every patient, regardless of, needs these parts of this framework, they need to meet these parts of this framework, then it's like, okay, I know where they came from, where they're going, I know the entire roadmap. Now I'm just going to apply all my skills that I already know as a physical therapist and just inject them into this framework. Mm-hmm. So I'm trying to simplify this so the therapist doesn't need to see 500 amputees a year to get good. They can have a pretty good baseline level of care when they don't have the volume of these patients on their schedule.
Right. So let's say there's a clinic, a physical therapy clinic, and they want to have training, right? They want to contact ampuPTee, have some training so that they get that framework, right? And in some ways, you can help the physical therapist get out of their own head, right? To not get quote, freaked out over a prosthetic device. How how does it work? Do you come on site and train them? Do they watch you online? They do what is the process like from a physical therapist perspective, somebody who's hiring your company? What is that process like?
So the easiest, the main way is on my website, ampuPTee.com. We have a list of upcoming courses. So we kind of try to get around the country. In 2026, I tried to get to all different parts of the country. We went to Atlanta, Chicago. We're going to be in Hartford, Phoenix, Denver. So I try to get to different parts so travel is a little bit easier. But really, therapists can go on the website, pick what course, the date that looks good for them, and sign up there. That is the easiest way. The other thing that we're really trying to implement and is starting to take off now is training teams, because again, that's the tough part. Maybe there's one therapist at a rehab facility that works with the limb loss population, and they're good at it. But what happens if their schedule is full? What happens if they're on vacation, or they can't see this new amputee that's coming in? I don't think your care should depend on what therapist is available that day. And again, then that therapist is still working on an island. What if they have some challenges or they want to bounce some ideas off of somebody? They don't have anyone else that has experience. So training teams to all work off the same framework, to communicate with each other so that patient gets the same level of care regardless of who they're seeing. And then again, the whole team elevates their care because you got all these different therapists with different knowledge bases, different experience levels. And if they're all applying that to a specific population, that care is going to get so much better.
Yeah, and I'm also seeing some comments in the chat about having them speak the same language. The importance of speaking, using the same terminology, and understanding the same core concepts seems to be critical for your patient care as well. So there's on your website, folks can go and look for, not folks, physical therapists. This is for physical therapists, can go and look and see what sessions are coming up, where they can sign up and register to come and learn from you. What is your I'm going to ask you a very job interview type question now. Everybody brace yourselves, okay? Your 5-year vision for yourself. Everyone's heard that question at some point. What is your 5-year vision, right, for ampuPTee? Is it to continue down this path of doing kind of set location-based services? Is there something else on the horizon that we should be aware of? Where do you see yourself in 5 years? I'll turn on my interview voice. Where do you see yourself in 5 years, Darren?
That's a great question. If you would have asked me that right when I started, right when I opened this company, my answer probably would have been different. The first year in has probably changed my perspective as to how quickly or lack of speed that things happen in this world. So I thought every therapist after the first year, every therapist in the country would want to take my course and work with the limb loss patient population. But it's also very difficult to get out there. It's a very saturated world. This education is everywhere. We're in an information overload era. So there's access to information everywhere. And it's like, how do you separate yourself from the other education bits out there? So 5-year plan, to answer your question, once we gain some traction with these courses and we start building up this massive network of therapists who have additional training in amputee rehab, we're going to start training facilities. We're going to make it so there is a big database of therapists that can really elevate the standard of care. And I think soon we want to expand into other healthcare professionals. So I want to bring in prosthetists, occupational therapists, starting to get into upper limb and bring in other experts into this company. So it's not just, I don't want it to just be me. I'm one person with one opinion. I understand that. There are many experts out there in this field of amputee rehab, and I want them all in this hub where everyone knows where to get this information. We got prosthetists, occupational therapists, physical therapists, physicians, PM&R, all collaborating to raise this standard of care. And that's really that 5 to 10-year plan.
Okay. I saw a comment in the chat, and thank you, Jeff, for saying this. I was going to ask this question as well, which is how can those of us in the community help you achieve your vision? Would it be appropriate, for example, for an amputee to say, listen, I heard about Darren, I heard about ampuPTee, I want you to look at his courses. Is that okay? Is that appropriate to do?
Yeah, for sure. The education is for anyone. I think for patients to share it with their therapist, just to know that resource is out there is so helpful, because as much as I try to get this out there, there's a lot of therapists out there, and therapists are busy and they don't necessarily have time to research. So if you ever feel inclined to say, hey, I know there's a company that specifically works on this, absolutely share. That would be incredibly helpful.
Okay, good to know. Now, you guys, we're almost coming up to the end of the hour already. I can't believe these always go so fast, our Hot Topic series. I see some questions coming in the chat, which I'm going to get to. But if you have questions, comments, feedback you want to share, please feel free to come off of mute. Just interrupt. Put your little emoji if you prefer to do that, if you want to be polite about it. But we'd love to hear some feedback, whether it's about what Darren's talked about so far, or questions specific to ampuPTee, a horror story about physical therapy that you want us to hear about. Treat this as your group therapy session for the next 15 minutes if you want. But as we're looking to see if anyone has questions, Darren, here's a great question from Lynn, which is, do you have a list of trained physical therapists on your website? And if not, maybe in the future, would you?
Yes, it's actively working on it right now, trying to figure out the tech and how we can make that searchable where people can go find. So I'm hoping to have that searchable database really soon, because I have some of the therapists who have gone through the courses asking about that. It's just also part of learning a business is like, oh yeah, you have to learn how to be tech savvy.
Yeah.
And that's a learning curve, and code all this stuff into your website. So yes, to answer your question, very soon it will be searchable. Yep.
Okay, great. Yeah, it was always nice to know. I would imagine, especially if you are in a rural area or an area that does not have a lot of options, if you want to see who's on the website, right? All right, so while we're looking for some other questions, and thank you, Marianne, for saying that. Thank you for considering the lower limb and upper limb concerns. Yeah, very important. I wish that more healthcare providers, not knocking our healthcare providers, we adore all of you, but we're just a little more sensitive to the specific needs of this community. On that point, Darren, I'm going to ask you to take off your business owner hat and go back to putting on your physical therapist direct service hat on for a moment.
Got it.
Could you, I'm not suggesting anyone do your own physical therapy, always talk to your healthcare team, okay? But is there like a tip, this is a tip, great tip for everyone to focus on at home, whether they're actively in physical therapy, they need to go back to physical therapy, they're not in physical therapy. Is there like maybe a tip that you might share with folks who have limb loss or limb difference, or something they can do at home?
These are always extremely tough questions, because I'm always hesitant to provide a general mess. Everyone is so individual, and the reason they can or can't do something is so different. We're adding this external device onto someone. So yes, this works for some person, but not the other. That being said, in my experience, there are certain things that every amputee should be working on, should be training. And if you can't do this, find out the reason why, and we need to address that probably in a little bit more depth. But if you are struggling with walking, getting around, a lot of these things come back to your lack of ability to tolerate weight on your prosthesis.
Mm-hmm.
And that can mean so many different things. If we were to watch most amputees walk and we're trying to pick out, you hear the word gait deviations. What are the gait deviations here? Almost all gait deviations are stemming from someone's lack of ability or deficit in putting weight on the prosthesis for long enough. So if we measured how long you're standing on each foot when you're walking, most oftentimes you're spending less time on the prosthesis than your sound side. So everything kind of comes back to our interventions are focused on getting you comfortable on the prosthesis, getting you strong on the prosthesis. And that's where everyone's different. Like, okay, put your weight on the prosthesis. Why can you now not do this? Why are you struggling with it? Is it because it hurts? The socket hurts? You're having sensitivity in your residual limb? Okay, well, we need to address that. Is it because you don't have the range of motion in your hip or your knee? Or maybe it's your back is so screwed up from prior injuries in life, or maybe you don't have the strength in your hip. That's where I think everyone gets specific, and we need to address the core deficits as to why you cannot do those things. But if I had to pick one thing that everyone should be doing, it's stand on the prosthesis and tap your sound side or the opposite foot up on a small box and just develop the ability to do those forward taps on the box up and down. I don't know too many individuals out there that couldn't benefit in some capacity from simply doing that.
Great point. Yes, but keep in mind, everyone, this is not medical advice. Don't anybody call tomorrow and say, Dr. Darren told me this is what I should do. We're just planting the idea, okay? We're planting the idea out there. I want to get to some of these questions, and thank you, Lynn, for pointing this out too. We are all different. Yes, everybody is different, okay? I think overall, listen to your body. Listen to your body, okay? And be aware of what your body is telling you. On that point, a couple questions that I want to get to, Darren, as we're coming to the end of our time with you. Watch our podcast coming out on Friday if you want to hear more about Darren's origin story, including a little bit of Wisconsin, Michigan banter, which I did not talk about today. I do see that socket behind you. Watch the podcast. You know what we're talking about on Friday. Okay, so couple of questions for you, Darren. Are you considering adding physical therapy services virtually? I suppose maybe training virtually. I'm thinking you could watch someone do an exercise and then provide feedback or evaluation. Is that something maybe in the 5-year plan for ampuPTee?
I would never say never, because I think as I have the capacity to add more and more faculty to this program, I think the ability to do some of that consulting, virtual training is always a possibility. I don't know if it's going to be a direct focus, because there are other avenues, other individuals out there that are doing that, and they're doing an incredible job of that. So I'm still trying to focus on kind of a I don't want to say a bigger issue, but a more systemic issue that hopefully you don't need my virtual services. You have someone right next door that can address this in person. Nothing beats in-person care.
Yeah, nothing beats in-person care. I saw a couple comments in here thanking you and saying, I'm going to talk to my prosthetist. Yes, share this information far and wide with your prosthetist, who can refer to their friendly physical therapist about this program and the training that Darren and ampuPTee can provide. Share the information far and wide. Another comment here. Actually, there's two I want to get to, and then everyone, we're going to go to our giveaway that has nothing to do with ampuPTee, but I promised we would do it as our finale for July Hot Topic series. Comment here, but I'm interested from a physical therapist perspective what your feedback would be. I find myself sometimes having a hard time describing the pain to my prosthetist and where exactly it may be at times. I think, sometimes the pain is something you should also be talking to your physical therapist about, because that could be related to a lot of different things. It might be the prosthetic itself, the device. It might be something with your body or your alignment, right, Darren? That's a conversation you should have with both providers.
Yeah. For sure, because the pain can come from so many different things. And there are, like, when we're trying to determine what this pain is, first of all, we need you to describe what you're feeling. Don't ever feel like you're complaining, or it's like, oh, I need to just tough it out. This is going to be a painful process. Again, we cannot help or intervene if we don't know what you're feeling. We can't feel this stuff for you. So even if you think like, I don't know if this is normal or not, tell us, because we have a library in our head of really common, this feels really tight, or I'm having a lot of pressure here, whatever it may be. It's like, yes, almost everyone says that gets better. I wouldn't be super concerned about that pain. Or it's a really sharp pain here, it's zinging, not a good pain. We need to intervene and address that. So the more you describe those things to us and convey either the therapist or the prosthetist, that's the only way we can help address those things. But both of us should have that knowledge of like, this is normal, this is okay, we can kind of work through this, it's not going to cause any damage, versus do not tolerate this pain, we need to fix what's going on.
Yes, and I'm reminded of what our friend Coach Linda Cola told us, which is write it down. Keep a journal, everyone. Keep a journal and write that down every day, how you're doing. If you prefer the app, get the Gait Pulse app. It's free. Write it down and share that with your physical therapist.
Yeah.
All right, Darren. If folks want to know more about ampuPTee, where they can find you, where they can refer their physical therapist to learn more about your company, where do they go? What's your website address?
Website is ampuPTee.com. I put it in the chat a little bit ago. Please follow on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. I'm getting into. It's at ampuPTee. We can hold on. I'll put it in here.
Yeah. For those of you attending us live, we're seeing it in the chat here. For our TikTok friends and our YouTube friends, I'll make sure I post this information as well, so you can see all of Dr. Darren's information. Push it out far and wide. We want to be part of your 5-year vision, but also it's just so important to make sure that physical therapists are aware that there is uniqueness for the amputee community. We know that on a kind of a core level, right? But we want people to really take it seriously, and also where they can go to get training so that they can help.
Exactly.
All right, everyone. So we've got the information there.
And one thing quickly with social media, like really what I'm trying to do there is just provide value, tips, and tricks. So yes, while the intention is for physical therapists, healthcare providers, a lot of patients with lived experience are following. And I'm basically trying to teach the therapist to do this, but you can just as easy like watch what's going on in this and try it for yourself and implement this thing. So it is a huge benefit to you, or just bring that to your therapist if you're working with them. So by all means, it's not just for the provider.
Follow, get all the information. But again, nobody call and say, Dr. Darren gave me medical advice. Do not do that, okay? This is information only, but hopefully it's gotten you all to think more seriously about the importance of physical therapy and given you some oomph to tell your physical therapist you need more training, and it's okay. Advocate for yourself. All right.
Yep.
So, Darren, thank you for spending this hour with us and telling us more about ampuPTee, giving people the assurance that physical therapists that are trained in the amputee community are important. They matter. They exist. And we can create more by referring them all to your company. Thank you for sharing your time with us. And again, everyone, if you want to know more about Darren and his journey, watch our podcast that will be posted on Friday to YouTube and coming out with our Friday email. All right, Darren, thank you to you. All right, everyone. I promised we're going to do our giveaway of our giant $200 mink blanket. Here it is. All right, somebody's going to win this. I did not see any comments in the chat saying that we had anyone with dexterity issues or an inability to type the numbers. So we're going to go ahead and do the number game. For future giveaways, if you are someone who cannot type a number and you just didn't want to out yourself today, please let me know privately. I want to make sure that we can make this fair for everyone. But for today, we're doing a number game. Darren, you can participate too if you would like. We're going to, okay, so Director Jennifer is on her best honor. I'm going to write down a number here on my journal, and we're the first person to type it into the chat. So TikTok people, this is your last chance to get onto Zoom. YouTube, I'm sorry. This is why you got to join live every Wednesday at 2 o'clock Eastern time. We're going to get ready. Sandra, you can't start. I haven't done the number yet. Sandra's jumping the gun. That was going to be the number. I got to pick a different one now. Hold on, everyone. Let me write down the number first. Okay, it's a number 1 to 30. Start typing 1 to 30. I'll stop you when I see it. Stop. Okay, hold on, everybody. The number was 18, but keep me on the honor system. I believe it was Mr. Luna, but let me just check. I don't want to get anybody excited. The number was 18. Sandra's laughing at that 24. Girl, Sandra. So it was Mr. Luna. Congratulations. Okay, here, honor system. There's my number, 18. It says right there. Hopefully it's not backwards for you all. I'll mail you. I'll contact you separately so we can mail you your blanket. Okay, it's too hot now for July, but you'll have it at winter time, everyone. Hopefully you enjoyed that. And I did promise we would do these giveaways all summer, so don't worry. In August, we're going to do them again. Darren, thank you for joining us for Life Amplified. I really appreciate it. And for all of you for spending some time with us, I hope that you laughed, smiled, learned, felt some connection, and really started thinking more seriously about the physical therapy community and how you can advocate for your physical therapist to get trained as well. Mostly, I hope that you enjoyed your time with us, and I hope to see you back here next Wednesday, maybe at my tiny desk, maybe at a studio, to be determined, for the kickoff of August Back to School series with Mike Bullitt, who I saw on here. We got a lot to talk about. Next Wednesday, August 5th, 2 o'clock Eastern Time on Zoom and TikTok. Until then, take care of yourselves, everyone. Have a beautiful end of the week, a wonderful beginning of next week. Remember, together we can restore hope and reclaim lives. Lovely to see you all here. See you next Wednesday. Bye, everyone. Thanks, Darren. Take care.